Story 1. I busted my wife cheating, so I ended her and a fair partner's marriage. I'm at a complete loss. I don't know what to do. There were signs and I overlooked them. I was blinded by love and never imagined this would happen to me. Not with her, my wife and best friend of nearly 20 years. I work out of town and wasn't supposed to be back until tonight. We were supposed to leave for a 2-week road trip tomorrow. Things were slow at work, so I came home yesterday afternoon. This trip was to give us a little alone time since we've been so busy with family and friends this summer. When I got home, there was a truck in my driveway that I didn't recognize. My neighbor just recently asked me how I liked the new truck, but I thought he was mistaken and didn't think much of it. As soon as I could see the truck, I got a terrible gut feeling. I love my wife and trusted her completely, but that feeling was there and strong. I snuck around the side of the house to our bedroom window. It was open, and I could hear them as I got close. I looked in the window, and my worst fear was confirmed. They were right there, completely naked on my bed. I walked away. I've been fighting the urge to do something that I know I will regret. I'm struggling to care what happens to me at this point. I went to my family's cabin for the night and drank everything there today. I was on my way home to confront her and decided against it. I'm not ready. All I can feel is anger. All I can think about is violence. I'm not in a good place right now, not good enough to see her. I'm back at the cabin right now. I have a 60-ounce bottle of rum, and I've been staring at it for an hour. I want to get drunk and forget this, but I don't want to get drunk and make bad decisions. I know this is a critical moment in my life, and my actions in the coming days will dictate the rest of my life. That's why I'm here. I need help. I'm not ready to speak to family or friends, so I'm reaching out to strangers. This world update, busted wife cheating. The amount of support and advice I've received is unbelievable. I actually got choked up just realizing how many great people there are out there willing to help a stranger. It gives me a bit of hope for the world at a moment when I needed it most. The downside to all of this support is that I am struggling to respond to people. I have over 600 private messages on Reddit and several hundred comments on Reddit. I want to say thank you to everyone individually, and I'm going to make an effort to do that, but it won't be quick, so I will just start by giving a big thank you to everyone for your kind messages and helpful advice. It really means a lot to me. I have noticed several comments and questions that keep popping up and wanted to provide clarification in addition to my minor update. If you can't tell, I am feeling a lot better today. The pain almost completely went away. I still feel like I've been punched in the gut, but otherwise, I've begun looking to the future. It has been 2 days, so this doesn't seem right to me. Is this a calm before the storm, or am I just freakishly resilient? As for the questions and comments I've received, here are some cliff notes to clarify some things. When I said wife and best friend, I was referring to the 2 roles my wife played in my life. The other guy was not my best friend or even someone I knew. I didn't get a great look at him, but from a quick glance and seeing his vehicle, I didn't feel like this was someone I knew. We do not have kids. We were planning to have them soon, though. We recently sold our house, and we were set to move closer to my job in September when the new owners took possession. I am going to thank my neighbor, but I'm going to do it subtly, like he did for me. A lot of people have been asking me about the signs I mentioned overlooking. Off the top of my head, here are a few. 1. She was texting abnormally late at night. 2. She went for after-work drinks with friends regularly. This was not like her, but I was glad that she was being social. 3. She had yoga once a week but was apparently not paying because one of her coworkers was the instructor, and she was helping with setup and cleanup. I also thought she was very inflexible for someone who went to yoga. 4. Unknown caller hangups. We regularly answer each other's phones if we are closer to it. Several times, she had an unknown caller who would hang up as soon as I answered. We get a lot of spam calls, but usually it's a telemarketer or a debt collector looking for the previous owner of the number. Rarely it's a hang-up. The update is a work in progress. When my brother arrived, we had a good long talk. He has been my true best friend, and I realized I need to always remember that and know that he will always be there for me without judgment, the same way I would be for him. He really sets the standard for what a true friendship is, even if we fight on occasion. Since I was supposed to be home last night, I decided to respond to my wife's text. We aren't allowed to have phones on site, so it was reasonable for me to only be texting her. She knows it's easy for me to sneak in some texts. I wrote her and said I needed to go to one of my company's remote sites and wouldn't be able to call her until the end of the weekend. I told her that I would cancel all of the reservations and rebook later. She said she could take her best friend with her this weekend to the romantic bed and breakfast on a vineyard that I booked. I knew it wasn't the best friend she wanted me to think would be going. I told her that I already gave it to my brother and his wife since it was non-refundable, and they would pay me back in a month. This morning, I canceled all of the reservations except the romantic one. My brother is coming with me. Fortunately, the hotel let us switch from the honeymoon suite to a room with 2 beds. There also happens to be a really nice lake and boat rentals nearby, so this just turned into a long overdue fishing trip with my brother. This means I'm free for the weekend. I don't have to write her or talk to her for a few days, so that relieves some stress and gives me more time to think. I am currently in the mindset to get a divorce. I honestly can't see it any other way. My brother is supportive of this but has asked me to take a few weeks and speak to someone. His wife has a friend who is a couples counselor and is willing to talk to me on Monday. I don't see it changing my mind, but at least it might help untangle some of this mess for me. I am also taking a bunch of the advice on here and starting to speak to lawyers, at the very least to prepare for what I think is inevitable. I want to do this right. I've never thought of her as someone who would try to screw me over, but I also never expected her to cheat, so I think I need to be prepared for anything. Thanks again, everyone. I'm going to try to enjoy my weekend as much as possible. Update 2. A lot has happened in the past few days. I'll start with the less important stuff. My brother, Matt, and I drove nearly 5 hours to the B&B on the vineyard. I really appreciate him being there for me through this. It was more of a venting session than anything, but it really helped clear my head after spending the better part of the drive whining to him. I just wanted a little alone time while he wanted to go out for dinner. I stayed in the room and he went out to eat and took me back some food. He also managed to rent a boat for the next day. On Saturday, we hit the water. The owner of the B&B knew about our plans for fishing and was nice enough to pack us a small cooler of food and drinks. It was their way of making the romantic package more useful for 2 brothers. It was a nice gesture. Fishing wasn't good. We both caught a couple of trout that we had to release due to their size, so the snacks from the B&B worked out great. We stopped fishing at mid-afternoon and then drove around to all of the vineyards and fruit stands, buying food and cases of wine for Matt's wife, Jen. That night, we went for the biggest tomahawk steak we could find. On Sunday, we drove back to Matt's place. He lives in the next town over for me, which is about an hour away from my place. When we arrived, Jen was there, and we all sat and cracked a bottle of white we had chilling in the cooler. This is when the weekend officially ended for me. Jen told me that while we were away, she decided to go spy on my wife. She told me that the guy was at my place on Friday night all night, but on Saturday morning, she managed to get there just as he was leaving. She followed him home and found the apartment where he lived. My wife stayed over there on Saturday night, the same time she was sending me text messages saying she loved me and missed me. Jen said that she was splitting her time between visiting family who live in my town and stalking my wife. She said that she happened to catch my wife leaving his apartment on Sunday morning and took a few pics of them hugging and kissing before she got into her car. I don't want to see them. That pretty much sealed the deal for me. I don't think I could ever trust her again if she can turn it on and off so easily, to tell me she loves me while being with a different guy. Still, I decided that I am not going to jump to a knee-jerk reaction based on emotions. I need to remain calm and level. That's when Jen told me that Sharon was coming over for dinner. Sharon is the counselor that Jen set me up with an appointment for. To clarify, she has never met my wife, and this was my first time meeting her as well. Sharon was a very nice person, and we got along great. After dinner, Sharon and I went for a walk around Matt's neighborhood to walk the dogs and have a bit of a private conversation. Sharon was really helpful in the fact that she was a great listener and made me feel like I didn't need to be guarded. It was therapeutic to be that free with describing my feelings, as much as I am comfortable with. My brother, this was just different and very needed. It's the same reason why I like writing this on Reddit. It's a vent session that helps me untangle some of the mess in my head. Our walk lasted an hour, and the only real advice that Sharon gave me was to not delay the conversation with my wife. She said that the longer I wait, the harder it will become to talk to her about this. She said I need clarity more than anything at this point, and my wife is the only person who can give that to me. Later that night, Jan and Matt offered me to stay with them for as long as necessary. I know that Matt and I have an expiry period for being in close quarters with each other, so I spoke to my boss who was able to set me up in company housing. I've been staying there every second week for a while, but have to leave on days off. He managed to make it work for me to stay full-time for a few months if I needed to. I decided to rebook with Sharon for later this week. I figured our walk sufficed for the first session. She agreed. I spent the night on Sunday just laying in bed thinking about how to approach this. I struggled with this because even the imaginary scenario in my head was making me angry or sad. I decided I would just wing it. I'm usually good under pressure. Yesterday, I woke up and said my goodbyes to Matt and Jen. I drove home and was thinking, what if he was there when I arrived? Then I thought that it would likely just put me back in the angry spot I was a few days ago. I decided to do a drive-by first. Neither his truck nor my wife's car were there. I went inside and grabbed a bunch of essentials and things I didn't want to part with, mainly just some photos and old family heirlooms. I got them all packed up in my truck and then headed over to the guy's apartment. Her car wasn't there either, but his truck was. I decided to ride by to see where she was. She said she was getting groceries. I trust her so little right now that I drove by the grocery store and actually confirmed she was there. I feel so dirty admitting that I did that, but my trust is broken, and it's the only way I can be certain of anything. I wrote her again and told her to just come home because we need to talk. She wrote back, "What's wrong?" I just responded and said she needs to be ready to be honest and then turned my phone off. She got home 15 minutes later. When she came in, she came over to give me a hug and kiss like she does every time. I turned away from her. She asked me again what was wrong, so I told her that she needed to start being honest with me. She played dumb and said she had no idea what I was talking about. I said, "Okay, if you can't be honest, then I am leaving." She started panicking at this point and said, "Are you talking about yoga?" I figured it was a start. I asked her what she was talking about, and she told me that she hadn't been going to yoga. Here's a bit of a breakdown of the rest of the conversation. Me, if you weren't going to yoga, then where were you going? Her, I was taking walks to relax because I've been so stressed lately. Me, why were you so stressed? And why did you lie to me about what you were doing? Her, preparing for the move has been stressing me out, and I just didn't know how to tell you. Me, so lying was the decision you made. What was your concern with telling me that you were going for a walk to de-stress? Her, I didn't mean to lie. I was worried that my stress would add to your stress. Me, but I'm not stressed. It really seems like you are not telling me everything. Her, what do you mean? Me, I think that you're lying about more than just skipping yoga. I am asking you again to be honest. You've already lied to me, so this can't work if you keep lying. Her, I don't know what else to say. Oh, are you talking about last weekend when I went for drinks with some friends and came home late? I had a feeling that bothered you. Me, I had no clue that she went for drinks or was out late. I was at work a couple of hours away. Me, is that what you actually did that night? Or was that a lie as well? Her, I went for drinks that night, but I didn't see her best friend who she supposedly was with that night. Me, who did you see? Her, no one. I just drank alone. Me, you drink alone now? Her, yeah, maybe I have a problem. Me, maybe we'll talk about that later. Last chance, be honest or I'm leaving. Her, I don't know what else to say. Me, okay, I'm leaving. At this point, I got up and left. Usually, when we have an argument, I go for a drive to get away from her. She probably thought this was the same. Then she realized I had taken my clothes and toiletries as well as the Xbox. That's when she began blowing up my phone. I told her that I gave her a chance to be honest, and she didn't, so there's nothing left to say. She begged and pleaded with me to come home to talk about this in person. She said she had no idea why I was so upset or what I thought she did. She repeated that she loved me and would never hurt me. Just hearing her say that really tore a new hole in my chest. It was always comforting words that I believed without question. Now it's a dull, jagged knife sawing through my heart in the most devastating way. I couldn't handle it, so I hung up. She called back about 40 times before I was ready to answer again. This time, she said, "Did you talk to Karen, her best friend?" I asked why, and she said, "Come home. I don't want to say this over the phone." I agreed and drove around a little longer to get my heart rate back down. Then I went home. That conversation went like this. Her: "I assume you spoke to Karen." Me: Her? Her: "Well, a few weeks ago, while you were at work, we went for drinks. A couple of guys started buying us drinks, so we just played along. When we were leaving, one of the guys tried to kiss me. I pulled away immediately and told him I was married. I felt so bad about it and wanted to tell you, but I'm an idiot and just decided to hide it from you. Karen hooked up with the other guy and gave his friend my number without asking me. He has texted me a few times since, but I have never written him back." Me: "Can I see your phone?" Her: "Yes." She showed me her phone, which was completely empty of texts except for myself and her mother. She never deletes her texts, so this was new. I looked at her photos, which was also clean, but then I checked the deleted photos and found one of a guy I didn't recognize. Me: "Who is this?" Her: "That's the guy who tried to kiss me." Me: "Why did you take a picture of him?" Her: "I was just being stupid." Me: "That's not a reason. Why did you take a picture of him?" Her: "I don't know." Me: "Is that everything you want to tell me? Or is there more?" Her: "That's all I can think of." Once again I left. I didn't want to be trickle-truthed. I got in my truck and drove away. She ran outside trying to stop me, but I was already out of reach. I went to the park nearby and just sat on my tailgate and ate my lunch, trying to figure out what to do next. While there, I began remembering other things that I should have been more aware of, things like: 1. I was working a weekend shift and was in bed early. My wife went out to the club with a few of her girlfriends. I woke up at 4 a.m., and she still wasn't home. I called her a few times, but there was no answer. About 30 minutes later, she called me back and asked if I would come and get her. When I picked her up, she told me that they were trying to hail a taxi but had no luck. A couple of guys that her friend knew stopped and offered them a ride, but wanted to stop at home first. When they got to the guy's house, her married friend went into a room with one of the guys. My wife said she spent some time looking for her, but then eventually gave up and just had a drink in the kitchen with the roommates while she waited. She claims she didn't hear her phone when I tried calling. We fought about this, and she was disgusted by her friend's actions, so she cut that friend out of her life. I thought that was over. 2. Another time, she traveled to visit a close friend in a different city. It was a planned girls' night. There were 4 girls, all getting drunk and watching movies in their PJs. At least that's what I was told. Then she called me around 1 a.m. to say goodnight. We spoke for about 20 minutes, and she repeatedly told me that they were having a great girls' night. Then I heard a guy's voice in the background. I asked who it was, and she denied hearing anything at first. Then it happened again loudly. She couldn't deny it, so she was like, "Oh yeah, X took a couple of guys with her. Everyone here is super pissed about it." She was drunk and 3 hours away. She left me no choice but to trust her again. We fought about that and why she refused to tell me they were there. She promised never to put herself in that type of situation again. Clearly, that didn't stick. After remembering all of those things and the conversations we had about them, I was ready to give this one last shot. I turned my phone back on and almost immediately it rang. I answered, and she was screaming for me to come home. I drove back to the house. I walked inside and was immediately confronted by her, bawling her eyes out. She was sitting on the couch, repeating, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I asked her, "Sorry for what?" She began rocking back and forth like a crazy person. It took her a good 5 minutes to catch her breath enough to speak. Her: "I lied about the guy who tried to kiss me." Me: "Okay. Tell me what happened." Her: "The 4 of us actually went back to his place that night. We fooled around. I knew it was more than that, but just hearing her say it made me feel dizzy. It felt like the room was getting smaller, and there were a million people speaking into my ears at the same time. I think I was having a panic attack. I went to the bathroom and washed my face in cold water until things returned to normal." Me: "What did you do?" Her: Do you want me to actually tell you? Me, yes. Her, he fingered me and I gave him a blow job. Me, was that it? Her, yes. Me, I'm not playing this game any longer. You either tell me everything right now, or this will be the last time we speak. She began bawling again and took another few minutes before she was able to speak. Her, we met up again and had sex. I'm so sorry. I love you, and I'll do anything to make up for this. Me, just the one time? Her, if I tell you the truth, please give me a chance to do anything I can to make up for it. Please. Me, I'll think about it. Her, it was an affair. We had been hooking up while you're out of town for work. It's been going on for almost a month now. He is married, and they are about to get divorced. Me, does he know you're married? Her, yes. Me, if he's having an affair because his marriage is failing, does that mean you think ours is failing? Is that what you told him? Her, no, I don't think ours is failing. I'm so stupid. I hate myself. Please don't leave me. I can fix this. Me, how? Her, whatever you want. If you were in my shoes or even his wife's shoes, what would fix this for you? Her, knowing the truth. Being able to trust you to mean what you are saying. You can trust me. I screwed up and won't do that again. Me, if you were his wife, wouldn't you want to know the truth? Her, yes. Me, then fix this. Her, you want me to call her? Me, if you think that is what you would want. She tried calling but never got an answer. A few minutes later, her cell phone rang. It was listed as Karen Work. She looked shocked, so I knew that wasn't Karen. I asked if that was him. She said it was. I answered, and being the coward he is, he said, "Oops, I must have the wrong number." I said, "No, this is the husband of the girl you've been cheating with. I'm going to let you speak to her because she has something to say to you." I passed her the phone. Her, I told him everything. He knows the entire truth. We're done. It was just a fling, and now you need to never contact me again. I asked to see the phone before she hung up. Me, what divorce lawyer are you using? Him, I'm not getting divorced. Me, oh, but didn't you tell my wife that you were? Him, no. Me, okay. Then can I speak to your wife? I feel she has as much right to know about this as I do. Him, please man, I didn't know she was married. Don't ruin my marriage over a mistake. Me, you ruin mine over a mistake. It's only fair that I tell your wife. Him, please don't. She's at work right now. I will tell her everything when she gets home. I swear. Me, okay, you do that. That's where I hung up. I asked my wife if she knew where his wife worked and her name. She did. I had my wife call over and ask for her at work. She did get her on the phone and told her to take a seat. This woman said she was just getting ready to leave for the day, and she would call my wife back from her car. She did. His wife. What's going on? My wife? I have something terrible to tell you, and I don't want to cause any accidents. Please don't drop. His wife. OMG. Did something happen to his name? My wife? No. He's at your apartment right now. I am just letting you know that we have been having an affair for a month now. I'm coming clean to my husband right now and thought you should be given the same respect. She went silent for about a minute, then said, "If this is some sick joke, I will find out who you are." Then she hung up. Not even 10 minutes later, my wife got a text from Karen Work saying, "Thanks. You just ruined my life." I grabbed the phone and wrote back, "You just ruined 4 lives and 2 marriages. Don't forget that. This was your fault, you piece of expletive." For the next hour, my wife begged and pleaded with me to stay with her. She offered counseling. She offered to never leave my side. She even offered me sexual favors. This was everything that I expected, thanks to the comments in here. She then said we should go on that vacation, her treat. "We need time away," was her reason. "We need to spend some quality time together because my work schedule has been pushing us apart lately." Also, exactly what I expected her to say. She wasn't expecting me to tell her that I went anyway. She also wasn't expecting me to tell her that I already have counseling booked for myself. She definitely wasn't expecting me to tell her that I busted her on my very own bed. I could only imagine she didn't expect me to have a place already lined up to stay. When I told her all of that, she fell to the floor, bawling. She started saying how she didn't deserve to live. She told me I should just kill her right now because she's too terrible to be with anyone. It went on like that for a while. I stayed for a total of 4 hours, listening to her make excuses, then try to hug me or cuddle me, or even blow me if I would just stay and work through this with her. In the end, I called Karen and told her that her cheating friend is suicidal and that she should come keep an eye on her. Then I left. It's been almost a full day since that went down, and I haven't spoken to her since. She has been calling and texting me all day. Her friends and family have been calling and texting me all day. Everyone has a different excuse or a different plea for empathy. Her father is the only one who wrote me and told me that I need to do what is best for me and that he will always love me like a son, no matter what happens. Reading that was what made me have a good cry for the first time since all of this began. I meet with Sharon, my counselor, tomorrow, and a lawyer on Thursday. I think I know where this is going, but until it happens, I'm just not sure about anything. I'm sorry for the overly long-winded story. It just helps to vent in this way. Again, I really appreciate all of the comments and messages. The people sharing their own stories like this are really helping me feel less broken and giving me more hope. I sincerely appreciate everything you've all said and done for me. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Before we start, if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Now let's continue. Was I wrong for kicking out my boyfriend for playing video games with my sister? The game is Terra, and the character she was playing was an alien. Now that's out of the way, this is where it begins. My mom and dad have been staying with us for a few days, and I've been showing them around the city. My sister, 6, also came up with them, and while she's been out with us most days, she wasn't feeling too well, so she wanted to stay at home. I was going to babysit her while my parents went out, but my boyfriend insisted he could look after her and said I should go have fun. That was fine. I trusted him and she liked them, so no problems there whatsoever. The issue is when we arrive home again, they both come out of our room in a pretty good mood, my sister especially, and she's talking about how much fun they had playing this game together. Again, I didn't have an issue with any of this, and they headed back to the bedroom. The issue begins when later I wander in to see what they're getting up in the game, and there's a little half-naked girl on the screen and my sister is playing as her. I don't mean a kid in shorts, I'm talking about pretty much FING underwear. I admit I lost it. I yelled at him, asking exactly what the F is going on. Pretty much instantly he turns off the computer and starts shouting back, asking what my problem is, why I'm being weird, saying she's only playing as a character that looks like her and asking why I'm acting crazy about it. My parents obviously came rushing in to see what was going down, and at this point I just shouted at him to get out now before I hurt him. Before he storms out, he calls me a FING nut and tells my parents I started freaking out over a cartoon. I thought I was in the right, but I received a bunch of texts this night from our mutual friends asking me what my problem was and if I really lost it over getting jealous over a cartoon. My boyfriend has sent me a few texts questioning my mental health and is going on about how he has a right to be in his own home and how he should call the police. My sister just gets upset and says it was a game when my parents ask her what happened, and now they're acting unsure around me. Their trip is basically FING ruined. Am I completely crazy for this? I got a lot of mixed responses earlier and also a lot of PMs over this, but I just don't see how anyone could think getting a little girl to play that character is okay. Edit. Just want to make it clear he made the character for her and dressed it the way it was, not her. Was I wrong for kicking out my boyfriend for playing video games with my sister? Last night was pretty wild. I received a ton of hate for being insane, creepy, overreacting, saying I was sexualizing innocent things and being a complete nut. I also received a ton of private messages agreeing with me and telling me to look further. I'm glad I listened to the second and went with my gut. On the advice of another Redditor, I went and looked at his computer to see if I could find anything or log into the game itself to show my parents. Well, I found it. A lot worse. There were a lot of images drawn of little girls, starting off first in the innocent type outfits and sexy posing, then progressing to downright sick and illegal nudity and hardcore sex. The cops were called and they said what he was doing was standard grooming type stuff and I did the right thing. They're bringing him in for questioning and also have taken the contents of his computer, which they too confirmed was illegal. Maybe this seems silly to update this, but I want anyone who read what I was told last night not to doubt themselves or their instinct when they get into a situation like that based on the opinion of uninvolved people. I just knew that something more was up. There was a feeling in the air and the look on his face. Please do not doubt your emotions when it comes to matters like this. Edit. Quite a few people are screaming fake over the fact police were involved so fast. All I have to say is that I hope you're speaking from lack of knowledge and that isn't the case where you live, but here if you call them over a serious matter, they will send somebody out in minutes. Also, it was not some dramatic thing with the police busting down doors, hunting him down and hauling off his computer all at once. The detective looked at his computer first, then they phoned him in and he agreed to come along. Now on to the next story. Story 3. My name is John and I am 52 years of age. My wife's name is Serena, who is 47 but looks much younger. She's a beautiful woman, tall, has long black hair, pale skin and a great body. She maintains her looks by working out and eating well. We've been married 24 years, with our 25th anniversary coming up in a month before the discovery. We have 2 boys, Michael and Ben, both married and just starting families of their own. Both have remained geographically close to us and we see them often. I worked for a drug manufacturer in New Jersey that produces some ethical drugs, but we also make generics and we are one of the largest manufacturers on the East Coast. The FDA closely monitored us and it was critical that all drugs were accounted for at all times. Recently, our FDA inspector found some discrepancies in our paperwork and our audits were more frequent now and would continue that way until he decided we had our house in order. Because of my position as VP of Compliance, I've been working very long hours and traveling twice a month for the past 8 months to our warehouse many miles away to show a presence when he inspected our drug inventory. It was difficult work, but I was training 3 additional compliance techs to take over the load. It was starting to cause problems in my personal life, but we were very close to recertification and I had started to back down on my workload. I had decided that I was going to retire just as soon as I had the new techs up and running and our certification was either complete or in the works. I want to do that by our anniversary. I hadn't told Serena as I wanted it to be a surprise. I was able to find some time at work for myself one day, so I was downtown trying to find a jeweler to do a special job for me. It was for our silver anniversary and I was going to do something special for Serena. I found the little jewelry shop I was looking for across from the downtown down the alley off to the side. A friend who used them for a special locket he had made for his wife recommended them to me. I had something similar in mind for my wife as my anniversary present to her. I talked with the owner, a Pakistani who had immigrated to the country over 15 years ago. His English was perfect and I told him what I wanted. I had a 1.15 carat diamond ring that I no longer wore and the stone was a perfect clear white. I wanted to have it reset into a necklace for my wife because she always loved the diamond. He looked at the stone, made appreciative noises and pulled out some white gold and sterling silver settings for my choice. I picked one that had 3 small diamonds surrounding a large stone that would go in the center. It was magnificent. We agreed on a price and I gave him the ring. He took a picture of it on his scale and made a copy for me for security. It will be ready in about 2 weeks. Perfect. As I walked back out to the main street, I glanced over to my right and saw Serena coming out of the hotel lobby. Afraid that if she saw me she would ask what I was doing, I ducked back into the alley and watched as she hailed a cab. I was surprised since I knew of no plans on her part to come downtown and certainly no plans that involved the hotel. As I watched, I saw Bill exit the hotel and come up to her side. He said something to her and she laughed. She got into the cab and left as Bill walked away. Bill was my close friend. He and I had met when I first joined the company and he was our realtor. We became friends and he and his wife Sally were frequent visitors to our home. We had known them for just over 10 years and we'd taken a few trips with them before things got a little hectic with my job. As the cab pulled away, I wondered about what I'd just seen but decided that maybe she was planning something for me on our anniversary and Bill was helping her. While I had no idea what they could be doing at the hotel, I decided to wait and see how it played out. I would raise some questions at home tonight and see what she said. Serena and I lived in a large 2-story colonial in a very nice part of town. I had done quite well in my job and had a comfortable salary. I had also inherited a large sum from my parents. With good advice from my investment counselor, it had grown to almost twice that amount. Serena and I had decided that we would not touch it until I decided to retire. I want to do that now, and the time looked right since our 2 children had graduated from college and moved on to their own lives. The house was way too big for us, but we loved it and continued to live there. I loved coming home to it and to her. She always had a drink ready and waiting, and we had a routine that included just talking about our day. I thought tonight might be very interesting. So I walked into the kitchen from the garage and put down my briefcase. I shed my jacket and tie and put them in a hanger in the hall as I made my way into the room we called the library. Even though it had few books, I found Serena waiting as usual. We greeted and she asked how my day went. I responded that it was very productive and I was able to take care of some things I wanted to get done, and that I finished all of my work for my upcoming trip to where the warehouse was located. She said she was at home all day and just did some cleaning and straightening up. I was immediately alerted to her comment about staying home all day. Why would she say that when she was downtown just about lunchtime? She was not very good at lying, so I decided to push it and see her reaction. I asked if she had seen Bill lately, that I needed to tell him something about a question he asked me on some drugs, and I thought he was coming by. She said she hadn't seen him since we went to their place, which was about a week ago. Now the lies were beginning to compound. At this rate, she was going to make a mistake if I pushed it, so I decided not to. I was far too concerned at what I began to suspect was happening. Serena and I had not made love for over 6 months. I tried to initiate it several times lately, and each time she had quietly turned me down with some excuse that meant she didn't want to have sex. The last time was Sunday evening, and she pleaded a headache that came up suddenly. At that time, I hadn't discussed it with her for fear of making her angry. Now I thought maybe there was another reason. So I suggested we have Bill and Sally over for dinner that week on Friday night, but she said she didn't think she wanted to have dinner that week. Maybe we can plan it for the following week. Now she knew I had to go on my trip, and I hated to plan anything for one of those weeks, so I told her I had to travel next week and would rather do it this week. I then asked if she had a disagreement with Bill over something that I don't know about, that she seemed to be uneasy when I mentioned his name. Now she was really uncomfortable, so she stood up and left the room saying something about the bathroom. I considered her reactions and answers to my questions, and I knew without a doubt that she was guilty and that Bill was involved. I decided not to push her again. When she came back into the room, as she sat back down, I asked if she had thought about what she wanted to do for our anniversary next month, and that I thought of having a party here at the house with our friends Bill and Sally, Justin and Phyllis, and maybe the kids and their wives, and that we could have it catered so it would be no strain on us. She said she hasn't even thought of it yet, so she doesn't know, and asked if that's what I want to do. I told her that I thought that might be a good idea and it might be fun, that we both haven't been having much fun lately and I don't know why. Does she? She asked what I meant and what kind of fun. That I've been working so hard and we don't have a lot of time to do much with my trip every other week or so. I then asked about our love life and said I haven't been too tired for that. But she's not been in the mood for the last 6 months and I don't know what's going on. But she seems to have no interest in me anymore. She replied that she had not been feeling well, and I knew that, and that it was me that wasn't in the mood. She was angry, and not because of my attack. She was angry because I was right and she wasn't going to tell me why. I now almost knew for sure. I told her I was sorry and I'll back off. I guess she has her reasons even though I don't know what they are, and I'll make all the plans for the anniversary dinner next month and she can just relax and let me do the work. I apologized about the crack about our sex life and told her I'll just wait until she tells me when she's feeling better. With that, I got up and left the room. I went into my study and turned on the TV. There was nothing on I wanted to watch, but I needed the time to decide what to do. I decided that my trip next week was the key. She and Bill would be too cautious to do anything while I was home since she was now alert to my awakened suspicions. She certainly didn't think I knew anything, but she couldn't be 100% sure. The next day was Thursday and I went to work and made a phone call to a friend of mine in the electronics industry. He and I had worked together on some projects and I knew him well enough to confide in him. I told him what I needed and he told me what to buy. I called the supply store he recommended and gave them the order. It was delivered to my office that afternoon. It helps to have friends in the right places. My plan was simple. I had 10 voice-activated bugs, all small and innocent-looking and easy to plant. I also had 2 receivers, one single-channel battery-operated that had a range of up to a mile, and one with a range of just fewer than 300 feet. The short-range one would go into the house to monitor all the bugs but one in each room. The other bug would go into her purse and the receiver would be in her car. That way, if she went anywhere in her car, the bug would pick up her conversations in the car, and anywhere she carried her purse and the receiver in the trunk would record up to 5 hours at up to a mile away. I placed all the bugs that evening while she went to the store and set the recorder up in the workshop in the basement. I turned on the radio in the spare bedroom and went down to the workshop to listen. Perfect. I thought that I would have to wait until she went to bed to plant the one in her car and her purse. Fortunately, she fell asleep early on the couch in the living room, so I glued the bug in her purse right then and there and took the recorder to her car. I set it up in the trunk and again did a test. All worked perfectly. Now I was ready. Friday went by at a snail's pace. I wanted so desperately to listen to what was happening in the house, but knew I would have to wait until after dinner to check. I was divided about what I expected to hear. On one hand, I wanted nothing to be on the tape. I wanted my world to remain just as it was, dull and boring, but safe and with a wife who was still true to me in our marriage. On the other hand, I expected to find that was not the case and that she was cheating on me. That got me thinking, why would she cheat? Why had she suddenly stopped her love life? What was the problem, and why wouldn't she come to me to see if we could solve our problems? We had been married 25 years, and as far as I knew, the first 24 had been wonderful years for both of us. We were very much in love and we had a great life. What had changed? Maybe nothing had changed and I had simply been unaware of her actions. I thought about it all afternoon but found no answers. That night our dinner conversation was non-existent and we missed our "How was your day?" conversation earlier. She was very moody and seemed to be in another world. I was keyed up and nervous about what I was going to find later. We passed the evening without any more than the mandatory exchanges. She finally said she was going to bed early and went up the stairs to our bedroom. I waited for about an hour and walked up the stairs to look in on her. Her breathing indicated sleep and I went downstairs to the shop. I looked at the recorder and noted it had recorded something. I rewound it with a touch and pushed play. At first I heard the sounds of the phone ringing. It was very clear and I knew the recorder was working perfectly. I heard Serena answer. From then on I only had her side of the conversation, but I could read between the lines. It went like this. "Hello. Are you calling me now? Do you want to sleep with me? No, you know I won't meet you today or tomorrow. I won't do anything now until he goes out of town. Yes, same time and place. Goodbye." After that, there was nothing else except a call from one of our kids that she took later that morning. There were no further calls that afternoon, and she didn't leave the house, so I didn't need to check the car recorder. I didn't need to check anything else. Period. I stayed away from her as much as possible that weekend. I was so angry deep in my soul that I knew I had to avoid her. I knew that she and Bill would meet again, and in spite of the pain, I needed to convince myself that I should confirm what I already knew and not stop them. I had enough to know for sure what they had done, but I needed more to convince a lawyer. I wanted to wait until after our anniversary party to tell her what I knew, and I had a plan that would make this anniversary very special. The following Wednesday morning, I told her I had postponed my trip and would be traveling next week, but that it would be a short trip and I wouldn't leave until late morning and would be back by dinner. I then told her I wanted to do some things to get ready for the party and will be back later. I watched her smile at me and say something about looking forward to the party. She waited for another hour before she finally went to the phone to call Bill. I didn't bother to listen since it was being recorded. I'm sure they made plans for a different time. The day went very well since I was in a great mood and I found myself singing. I rarely have felt so good, and it caught me by surprise to find that this was like the end of my marriage, and why did I feel so good about that? That thought cooled me down and the pain returned with a vengeance. I wondered what I was going to do next. I went to the basement and rewound the tape for that day and pressed play. I heard Serena's voice as she called her lover Bill. It was something like this. "Hello. He just told me that he would be changing his schedule for next Wednesday. He's leaving later and he'll be home earlier. We can still meet at lunchtime, but I have to be home early in case he's home earlier than planned." I don't know why he changed plans. He didn't say other than to do some things for the anniversary party. I don't think he knows anything. You would certainly tell me if he did. He wouldn't keep it to himself. I don't know, but I meant it when I said that we have to end this. He may not have to travel much anymore. We will have to talk later. The rest of the conversation was just like this with nothing worth keeping on the tape. I erased and reset it to 0. So Serena was going to end it, but it was already too late. I was hurting again as I walked back upstairs. I would keep listening and go from there. For the next 2 weeks I kept to my plan. She and Bill kept their meeting for that following Wednesday. Couldn't wait. When I came home and went out to her car while she was setting the table for dinner, I got the recorder out of the trunk and took it downstairs. I checked the counter and noted that there were 2 hours of tape used. I was sure that it would be very interesting. I couldn't wait till I could listen to it. After dinner, I told her that I was working on some things downstairs and would only be about an hour. She just nodded since I usually spent very little time there anyway. She was just sitting down for her usual evening knitting. I listened to the tape and was rewarded with an hour of them fucking each other and her doing some things that I considered to be low-key but that apparently she enjoyed. It seemed that Bill was as unimaginative as he was stupid. I listened to the first part closely and then let the rest of it go as more of the same. What I heard was actually rather dull. For the next few minutes all I could hear was some grunting and groaning and the bed squeaking as they went at it. I listened as my heart grew heavier and I listened to the sound of my marriage going down the drain. I could never forgive this from either of them. The tape continued for almost a half hour as they continued in the same vein. I couldn't understand what she was getting out of this. Our sex life was far more interesting than what I heard that day. At times she actually sounded like she didn't even want to be there with Bill. I shut off the recorder and rewound the tape to be safe. I dubbed it and kept one copy in my safe downstairs and the other copy in my briefcase. I thought I would extract some excerpts from some of the phone calls and that meeting and make a demonstration tape for later. I went back upstairs and tried to go on with the evening as usual. I felt pain just being in the same room with her. I looked at her several times, but she looked perfectly normal. I guess she was now so used to cheating on me that she felt nothing when we were together. There was one surprising thing that happened just 3 days before the party. As I listened to the tapes that evening as usual, I heard the sound of the doorbell ring. Bill came to the house, but I only heard some of the conversation since Serena kept him at the door. She was yelling at him and kept saying, "No, not here. Not in my home. Never. Anyway, I told you we were through." This continued for a few minutes and I finally heard the sound of the door slamming and Serena storming back into the house cursing out loud. Sounded like Bill was wanting more and more and she didn't agree. During those weeks I contacted my lawyer and made sure the divorce papers were ready. I maintained my silence to her. I spoke only when I had to and tried to avoid any time alone with her. She finally noticed my reticence and commented on it a week before the party. She said I hadn't said much to her lately and asked if something was bothering me and if she did something wrong that made me mad at her. I told her I didn't know and asked her if she thought she's done something that would make me mad. She said of course not and asked why I would think that. I said, "I told you some time ago that we had some problems but you wouldn't talk about them. You just got angry and yelled at me. That's been your answer for everything, yelling. I just hope you haven't done something stupid to get back at me or to try to hurt me in some way." She started to respond but couldn't get the words out. She finally broke down and started to cry. I told her I'm sorry if I made her cry, that I was just letting off steam, and I knew she wouldn't do anything like that and I trusted her with all of my heart and soul. I told her I love her too much to ever hurt her and I hope she believes that. She just wiped her eyes and looked at me sadly. She didn't say anything to answer me and remained quiet. She finally went to the kitchen and the subject was forgotten. We spoke a little after that and things remained tense between us. As for the anniversary party, it was planned for Friday night, a day before our actual anniversary. Friday was best for most of our friends and for our children. It was catered so we had little to do other than dress for the party. We were together in our master bedroom about an hour before the party. I had decided to end my avoidance that morning in anticipation of this day. I asked if she was going to wear the beautiful blue dress I bought for her the previous year. They love her in it and it shows off all of her charms both in front and in back. I did love her in that dress. I bought it for her when she saw it in a window and commented on it. I bought it the next day and she was thrilled. She said she planned to and that she loves it too, although she didn't look as nice in it as I say she does. But I bought it for her and this is our anniversary so she thinks it's appropriate. Then she asked what I will be wearing. I told her it's just a shirt and tie with a sports jacket, and that I didn't want to distract anyone's attention from her. She blushed with pleasure and smiled for the first time in a long time. I wanted her to smile and be happy for the anniversary party. I wanted this anniversary to be remembered long afterward. The first guests were to arrive at 7 o'clock and we were dressed and ready by 6:45. I looked at her in that blue dress and I choked up. Tears came to my eyes as I looked at her. I had loved this woman for almost all of my adult life. She had been my life and I was about to lose her. The pain was so intense that I had to sit down for a minute before my legs collapsed. I wanted to give her my gift now. The more wonderful things she had to remember from this day, the better. I told her that before we go down to our guests. I want to give her my present now and I wanted her to have it for the party tonight. So I went to the dresser and pulled out the gold box the jeweler had given me. I took the necklace and moved behind her to fasten it about her neck. She moved to the mirror to see herself. She said it was absolutely beautiful and thanked me for it and said she loved it and will treasure it forever. She turned to show me and moved to give me a kiss of thanks. We shared the moment and moved to go downstairs. As I followed her down the stairs, I thought of what I had told her. It was true that I did love her. That was the sad truth and one that I had the most trouble with over the past weeks. I knew that while I loved her, I couldn't forgive her betrayal and her failure to confide in me and try to save our marriage. She turned her back on our marriage vows and on me and turned to another man. A man that I trusted and respected and who I would have done almost anything for. That betrayal from two of the people that I trusted most in this world was so great that I found myself struggling for breath each time I thought of it. But when I thought that, I listened again to the tape of their afternoon together and found the strength to do what I planned on doing. Everything seemed to be in place and the caterer was ready. We expected 8 others including our 2 children as well as Bill and his wife and another couple we spent time with. As luck would have it, Bill and Sally were the first couple to arrive. I shook hands with Bill as Sally went to Serena and embraced her. These were 2 of our oldest friends and this evening should be a time of celebration. I just didn't feel that much like celebrating, but I had no choice. Bill congratulated me and said I have the best of everything. A beautiful home, wonderful children, and a beautiful wife, and what more could I ask for? I just thanked him and said Serena and I have been very happy for the last 25 years, but things are not always what they seem and he knows what I mean. With that, I turned to Sally and held out my hands for a hug. She was cute but had grown heavy with the years. She once was a beauty but now was simply a typical housewife, overweight and plain. She congratulated me and wished us more years of happiness. I thanked her and said I wish I could count on more years together, but that may not be in the cards. I said this to her quietly so that only she could hear me. She looked at me in surprise, but I just shook my head to let her know that now wasn't the time. She took Bill by the hand and led him away to the bar for drinks. I watched them go and turned to look at Serena. She just stood there looking at me and asked what I said to Sally to make her react like that. I told her to just enjoy the party and we'll have time to talk later, that tonight I just want to enjoy our friends and our children and that this is our 25th anniversary and we have had 24 wonderful years together. At that minute the doorbell rang and we were ready for the next guests. Our son Michael and his wife Julie came in, followed by Justin and Phyllis and our other son Ben and his wife Carrie. We quickly became immersed in the congratulations of our friends and children. Things soon became chaotic and Serena and I were separated to mingle with groups of people waiting to talk to us about our party, our house, and our anniversary. The evening went quickly and we had a wonderful dinner planned, catered and served by experts. Everything was perfect except for the 3 of us. During the evening I watched Bill and Serena. They circled each other several times but were unable to find a minute alone to talk. I saw her finally grab his elbow and draw him into a corner. I watched as she spoke earnestly to him for a minute. He had a huge smile on his face that quickly began to fade. He listened and quickly glanced up to see me watching them. I looked at him for a second and turned away. I don't know what happened after that as my son Michael accosted me to talk about our plans. I was vague and told him we hadn't really made any. I kept myself occupied with Justin and Phyllis and my sons and their wives as long as I could until it was time for dinner. It was announced and we all filed in. I held back until Bill and Serena had both entered. Seating arrangements had already been made and my daughters-in-law flanked me on both sides while our sons surrounded Serena. It was a wonderful dinner. After dinner was finished, I stood up to give a toast to friends and family. I had planned my speech carefully for this occasion. I tapped my knife against my wine glass for attention. Once all faces were looking toward me, I told them I wanted to take this time to thank all of them for attending this very special occasion. I used the opportunity to raise a toast to everyone in attendance. Finally, I said, I want to raise a toast to my beautiful wife Serena. Everyone looked toward her direction, so all backs were toward me as I deliberately set my glass down without sipping. Only Serena could see me. After the dinner was complete and people were sitting around in the family room talking with dessert, Bill came over to me. He looked concerned. He said he didn't know what's got me upset, but Sally and Serena have both asked him what's up with me. I told him nothing was bothering me, and I asked why he and the ladies think something is wrong and what have I done to make them think that. He said he doesn't know what they think, but I have been kind of out of sorts with him that evening and that if something was bothering me he would like to talk to me about it and maybe try to help me. I just told him there's something that I could use his help and advice with, so if he and Sally are free tomorrow morning at about 8:30, they should come over for some breakfast and we'll talk. I could use Sally's input as well. I know it's early, but it's really important and I would really like his help. He said sure they can come, but I should give him a hint and he can keep a secret if that's it. But I told him not to worry, that it was job-related, but it is a surprise and I would like to tell everyone at the same time, and I'm not even going to tell Serena tonight. He finally agreed, accepting that he was going to get nothing more out of me tonight. I clapped him on the back and moved away to speak with Ben. I watched Bill talk first to Sally and then to Serena. They seemed to think that I had a surprise concerning my job that I was keeping, and Serena seemed to relax considerably. The party was winding down and the guests were all preparing to leave. I circulated the room and spoke with everyone, saying good night and thanks. I was anxious for the evening to end since it had been painful for me from the beginning. It represented a life that no longer existed. Bill and Sally were the first to leave, followed by Justin and Phyllis, and then Michael and Julie. My youngest son Ben and his wife Carrie were the last to leave, and they spoke with Serena and then left. Just before Bill and Sally left, Sally came over to me and said if I want to talk before tomorrow I should please call her, and if there is a problem she's willing to help with this. She gave me a hug while Bill looked on saying nothing. I thanked her and said I certainly will let her know if I needed someone to talk to. I then told her I'll see them both tomorrow, and she nodded and left. Her simple statement of caring caused me more pain at that moment than anything Bill and Serena had done. The problem with all affairs is that innocent people are always the ones to feel the pain the most. I had made arrangements with the caterers to take away any perishables and come back about 10 o'clock the next morning to clean up. They were just finishing up when I walked into the kitchen. I looked around for Serena but didn't see her. I asked after her and was told that she had said good night and gone upstairs. I waited a few more minutes till they left and then turned out the lights. I had a few things to do in the den and then I went upstairs. I walked into our bedroom and saw Serena still dressed, sitting in one of the two chairs that comprised our sitting area. I walked over to the other chair and sank down heavily. I looked at her and felt nothing but pain. Pain. No anger, no desire for revenge. Just deep, crushing pain. With difficulty, I smiled at her and said that I thought the evening had gone well. She returned the smile, but I could see the concern on her face. She asked if she could ask me something that concerns the party, and I told her to go ahead. That she's always free to do so, and that a husband and wife shouldn't keep secrets from each other. She asked why I set my drink down when I made my toast to her at the party. I told her I don't know and asked what she thought. She said she really doesn't know and I haven't said anything to her about doing something wrong. Then she asked if she had displeased me in some way. Once again I said I don't know. Then I asked if there's something she had done that would make me angry with her. But she said no and that she just tried to think of what it could be, but she just doesn't know what's wrong. I told her I'm sorry, but I don't quite believe her, and I think there are some very serious problems in our marriage. But I am too tired to talk with her about them tonight, and I'm going to sleep in the guest room and we could talk the next day. With that I rose and walked down the hall to the guest room before I lost my own composure. I had earlier moved some things in there, so I went in and closed the door. I had never slept in the guest room in all the years we had owned the house, nor had I ever locked my loving wife out of my bed. The pain of doing that was almost more than I could stand. I checked my briefcase for the things I would need the next day and found them all present. I undressed, turned out the lights, and lay down on the bed knowing I wouldn't sleep much that night. About an hour later, I heard a small knock on the door and Serena's voice asking me if she could come in. She knocked again, but I didn't answer her, and she eventually stopped and went back to our bedroom. I lay there with tears finally coming, and I fell asleep dreaming bad dreams. I awoke at my usual time of 6:45 but decided to stay in bed a while longer. I usually got up and was downstairs by 7:15 for breakfast, but I wasn't hungry that morning. I had no appetite. I remained in the room until I heard her go downstairs and then went into the bathroom. I went back to the room and remained there until almost 8:15 and then went down with a heavy heart to face her. When I walked into the kitchen, she was sitting at the kitchen table, not moving or looking up as I entered. With false bravado, I said, "Good morning. Is there any coffee? I could really use a cup." With that, I walked over to the machine and poured a cup of coffee that had already become rather thick. It had been made hours ago and was now bitter, but I drank it anyway since it seemed appropriate with my mood. She still hadn't said anything, so I walked to my seat across from her with the morning paper and my cup of bitter coffee and waited for Bill and Sally to arrive. I didn't tell her they were coming, so it would be a surprise to her when they showed up. As I folded my paper ready to read, she looked up at me and asked in a very quiet voice if I suspected her of something and if that's what this was about. I saw now that she had been crying, but I really didn't want to get into it until her lover was here. But if they weren't on time, I couldn't avoid it. I was just about to say something when the doorbell rang. She looked up in surprise and wiped her face before going to the door. She opened it to see Bill and Sally standing there. In a surprised tone, she asked what the couple was doing here at this time of morning, but Bill answered that I was the one to ask them to come over last night. He was surprised that she wasn't expecting them. I think Sally noticed her and asked if she was all right, that she looked like she'd been crying. But she said she was fine and welcomed them in. She came to find me to see what I had done and asked why I invited Bill and Sally this morning and what was going on. Without answering her, I walked into the hallway to see them and welcomed them in a booming voice. Once everyone was seated, Bill and Sally sitting side by side on the couch, and Serena sitting in her favorite chair looking frightened, I walked over to my briefcase and pulled out 2 8x10 manila envelopes. I moved with them to the center of the room and faced all 3 of them. I told them I have given this a lot of thought and I have some surprises for each of them. I said I've been working some very long hours and traveling more than I should have, but I felt it was necessary and that there were a lot of people depending on me and I couldn't let them down. But I hired 3 new guys and they are finally able to handle the job by themselves. It has been my plan to retire just as soon as I felt I could leave, and that time is now. And that a week ago I resigned from my job and told myself it's time to rest. Serena then asked why I didn't say anything about it, that she would have supported my decision and that she knew that my job was getting me down. Bill chimed in as well and said I don't have to work for a company that doesn't care about what's best for me and let them try to do without me for a while. I told them I'm glad to see that they both supported my decision and that I was planning on taking my wonderful wife on a trip beginning on our 25th anniversary, and that I had booked a flight to Miami, and from there we would pick up a sea cruise. Serena then asked what I meant by, I was planning on taking her. I paused a moment. This was it. There would be no turning back once I did this. That was when I dropped the bombshell. I told her I just thought that it would put a strain on her meetings with Bill at the hotel on Wednesday afternoons if she wasn't going to be here. Immediately all 3 faces were fixed on me now, and this was the moment of truth. Now that was out in the open, I walked over to the table and pushed the play button on the recorder sitting there. I had made a tape with excerpts of their conversations. I thought the first few words of their last Wednesday meeting would be most appropriate. From the small speakers we heard Serena's conversations with Bill. I turned the tape off and watched the faces of the 3 people staring at me. She looked like I had just slapped her across the face. She went still and her eyes wide open. I had never seen her as pale as I did then. She fell down into the chair with her hands over her face. I heard her say in a soft voice, "Oh, please God, no." I looked at Bill and saw a look of shock on his face as well. But more interesting was the look on Sally's face. She was furious. Serena was now sobbing openly, and she was looking at me with eyes filled with tears. She asked how long I've known and said I should let her explain herself. Sally jumped up from the couch with a look of anger and fury on her face. Bill also stood and turned to Sally just as she let him have it. She slapped him with her open hand as hard as she could and just glared at him as he staggered back. The smack sounded like a crack of thunder. Sally was on a roll and Bill looked as though he had just swallowed something rotten. She turned on Serena with real venom and said she has just ruined 2 marriages and that Bill is a lousy lover anyway. I decided I had better get back into the conversation before Sally killed somebody. I asked Bill to get out of my house right now and I never want to see or speak to him again and that he was supposed to be my friend but he stabbed me in the back. I told Sally that I have something for her and that she will want to take it. It was a complete record of phone calls between the 2 of them and it is very graphic in some spots. It should help her if she intends to divorce him. So I handed her a bulky 8 by 10 manila envelope. She took the envelope and stormed out of the house with Bill trailing along behind her. He seemed completely confused and lost. I really hope Sally would make his life a living hell from that point on. I turned to Serena, who had been standing still, sobbing and watching the whole sorry thing between Bill and Sally. She must know by now that she had destroyed Bill and Sally's marriage. I congratulated her and told her Bill and Sally were 2 of our oldest friends and she has succeeded in destroying both of their lives and I hope it was worth it and that Sally was a wonderful kind woman who didn't deserve what she and Bill did to her. She continued crying saying I have to let her explain. She said I've been so busy and she was so alone and Bill was only trying to be a good friend and that they just took it too far and that it won't happen again and I have to forgive her and let her make it up to me. I waited patiently till she finished. It was no more than I expected from her. I told her that after I discovered her affair, I did a lot of thinking. I went through days of pain because of her betrayal. I wondered what she was capable of and whether she had done this before with others. I wondered whether I could live without her if I were to leave her and I wondered about the boys and what they would think. She cried and said we don't have to tell the boys and she has never done anything like this before with anybody else. That she and Bill only met a few times and only the last 2 months or so and I have to believe her when she says she loves me and wants to be with only me. She added that Bill was just there when I was gone and he complimented her and the way she looked and he was so friendly and that she was so lonely and he was there for her. I told her I understood what she did but not why she thought it was acceptable to do it and I could have forgiven her if she had come to me and insisted that we try to find out what was wrong in our marriage. I could have accepted it if she had confronted me and insisted that we go for counseling but she never bothered and she never tried to fight for our marriage even when I asked her about it. Now she just turned to another man and gave him everything she promised only to me and I can't forgive that now or ever. With that, I handed her the second of the 2 envelopes. I told her these are divorce papers. I had them made out last week after I quit my job and that she'll be well taken care of. I told her I wanted the divorce to be simple and quick and that if she doesn't contest it I'll leave her the house and a nice sum of money but if she contested it I'll use everything I have from her affair in court and I will fight to take everything and leave her with nothing. Serena fell to her knees with her head down and tears coursing down her face. She was screaming, "Please John, I'm sorry. Let me try to make it up to you. You have to give me a chance to make it right." I then told her I was leaving for what was to have been our anniversary trip, and that I left instructions with my attorney on how to reach me, and how to handle the divorce and I do not intend to see or speak to her again, and I will call the boys and let them know how to reach me. Finally I said I have written a letter to each of our sons and I have told them exactly what happened and how she betrayed me and if she fights this divorce I will send those letters but if she accepts my terms they will never see them. But in the meantime, I will tell the boys that she and I had some problems and that our marriage is over, and we have grown apart and decided to separate and I will trust that they won't think too badly of me. Serena was now completely shattered. She had dropped to the floor and lay there sobbing with her arms over her head. I looked at her but couldn't feel anything. I could only remember her words to Bill as they betrayed me in that hotel room. That memory was enough to give me the strength to turn away and walk out of the house we had raised a family in. I could still hear her sobbing as I walked out the door. I had the tickets to Miami and reservations at a hotel and enough money to last me in style for the rest of my life. I intended to make the most of it. I wanted a new beginning and I hoped with time I could get back what I had lost, my innocence and my trusting nature. I was so very tired. I was tired of people who claimed to be my friend and then fucked me behind my back. I was tired of trying to maintain a broken marriage when my wife couldn't even tell me that there was a problem or let me know that we were in trouble. She put her own pleasure and needs ahead of mine. She fucked another man for reasons only she knew. I was tired of expecting trust from those I loved. None of them had been honest and none deserved my trust. I had treasured my friendship with Bill and he betrayed me without a thought. I had always thought that my love for Serena was unconditional, but I found out differently. You can't love unconditionally when the other person changes the rules. I shut the door on 25 years of my life and walked out to my car and drove off to begin the second half of my life. The first half had not been all bad, but it had ended badly. Maybe this time would be different. I had no idea of what I would be doing in the future, but I would certainly be a different person. I had learned some valuable lessons, no longer trusting, no longer taking things for granted, no longer working for someone else's benefit. I would take care of myself from now on and let others take care of themselves. As I pulled out of my drive for the last time, I looked back through the rearview mirror to see Serena run out of the house, look at my departing car and then collapse in the driveway. I slowed the car to watch as I felt some sense of pleasure. Maybe she had really cared. Maybe she cared enough to feel the pain that I had been living with since I found her out. I took my foot from the brake pedal and pushed on the gas. My future was waiting. In the end, our divorce was finalized and everyone got what they deserved. Or not. Sally and Bill didn't come to a resolution either, and I still keep in touch with her occasionally. And that's the story of how my marriage of 25 years came to an end. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.